Testing, testing, testing. I got the windscreen on my microphone, so hopefully I can say all my P's and it won't fuck with the audio. Alright, so Ed just came by and he knocks on the door and I answer the door and he goes, "Hey man, sorry I'm late. I got a throat infection." So then I walk right away, into the other room, and I'm going, "Ed, why did you come here if you have a throat infection?" And he's like, "Oh, sorry man, should I not be here?" And I'm like, "Well, I'm kind of a germaphobe, so I guess, yeah, you probably should go." But I really wanted to record our podcast episode, so I was torn. I was thinking, like, do I just get over my germophobia and let Ed talk into my face for another hour? So I just decided, no, I'm not going to be able to handle that. Ed, you got to go home, get some rest, and we'll do the podcast another day. And then he says, "Okay, I'll come by tomorrow." And I'm thinking, nope, still a germaphobe tomorrow. That's probably not going to work for me. So poor Ed, he's got a throat infection, and I wanted to record still, so I turned on this trusty camera, and I really need to discuss the current geopolitical environment. I'm thinking about it all the time. I'm probably obsessing, but it is what it is. I get into these little anxiety bubbles where I can't help but read the news all the time. It probably doesn't help that I have my phone on me all the time, but I think I would still read the newspaper. When I was in college, I read the newspaper every day, or I remember starting with the weekend paper, and I would always read the obituaries, which is interesting. But even as an adult, without my phone, I'm pretty sure I would still read the newspaper if I didn't have my phone all the time. But we live in an era of phones where you have the news on you all the time. And the other thing that I can't stop watching is, there's the news, of course, and then there's what we call social media. But what's going on with social media is, instead of just your friends posting about their weddings and their kids and their all kinds of stuff, a lot of people are sharing news on their social media. Like, social media is a little bit like, it's you, it's pictures of you and videos of you, but then it's what you think. And so you kind of have like this duty, if you really care about something or you really think something is true, to post it on your social media. So, for example, the latest issues are Gaza and Israel, or the Palestinians and Israel. The other big news story is Ukraine and Russia, and they've been fighting over a territory called Crimea, and the Russians claim that it's always been theirs, or that it's a Russian-speaking area, and the people there wanted to rejoin Russia, or the former Soviet Union. And the people of Ukraine say, no, that is our territory from when, just historically, and that even if people speak Russian there, it's our territory and you can't just take it or annex it or whatever. So there's been a war there for 2 or 3 years. So those are the big conflicts in the world. And then you have like China, who, the big thing with China is that, I guess, well, let me think about this. So at first, the thing with China was that they have so many people, and they produce so much stuff, and they used to have very cheap labor, and so for a while it was like they were just competition for jobs. Like people were losing their jobs in other countries because China was making all the stuff. And now it seems like, because China is kind of like a wealthier country than they used to be, it almost seems like the way people want it to be is, well, you should be paying your workers more. There's no reason for us to be making all the products that we have in our countries in China. And so they're looked at as a threat. I mean, they have a big military, but it's the economic threat that's always been. The other thing I heard the Chinese do is they buy up a lot of companies in like Africa and even the Americas. So they're kind of like economic expansionists. Like they're trying to get the resources they need to keep producing a lot of the goods. And so in order to do that, they have to go buy up mining companies and things and oil companies in other countries. So anyway, that's what's going on with China. India is the second largest country in the world. You don't hear a lot about India, but they're fighting with Pakistan, and there's always talk about one of them using a nuclear weapon. Like India, I think, has nuclear weapons. And so the question is, like, would India ever nuke Pakistan, because they're arguing. So these are other conflicts in the world. And my point is, what was my point? No, I'm addicted again. And I have a comedy show on tomorrow. I have a comedy show tomorrow. Right? Yeah, I have a comedy show tomorrow. And all week I've been thinking, I'm just going to do my old jokes that I always do. And then I can't stop thinking, like, if I go out on stage and the audience is there, they come all the way from their house, they get a babysitter, they're there looking for some laughs, and they're looking to the comedians on the show to provide some humor. Is one of the things they want to laugh about what's really going on in the world today? So am I doing a disservice if I just do old jokes about escalators and rice? Or do I gotta do my new stuff about politics in order to keep the crowd engaged in like healing the trauma that they're experiencing? That's kind of this thing about comedy is, and this is kind of why I got into comedy, but there's this thing that can happen where you can like alleviate the stress of someone worrying about something by bringing it up, talking about it. There's this old saying in psychology, which is name it and shame it. So if you're having bad thoughts about something, or if there's someone in the world doing something bad, you name them and shame them. As in, don't ignore it or it's going to get worse. Don't let these people go around killing or robbing and holding guns up and like doing criminal activity, because it's just going to get worse if you don't name them and shame them. So I don't know. I like my old jokes. I like my old jokes about running tap water before I use it and how silly that is. I got an old joke about kittens and puppies. I got an old joke about this Canadian guy, Gian Gomechi, who was a serial, like a date raper, bad guy kind of guy. But I don't know. I got a dream about, or a joke about dreaming. And then sometimes I think, nobody wants to hear about my dreams. Like, it's not interesting. Everyone's dreaming. Well, most people dream. They mean almost nothing. Sometimes they're completely abstract and you don't even know what they mean at all. So to bring up a dream on stage is a little bit funny. It's like, dude, why are you telling me this? But I tried to make my joke about dreams funny because it's about how God, or both gods, the girl god and the boy god, who are a married god couple. So in my dream, I called them the god couple. And my joke was about how, or my joke is about, I could do it tomorrow, but like I said, I'm thinking about doing more current events type stuff. The other thing is crowd work. Thing with comedy crowds is they really appreciate someone that acknowledges that they're there, acknowledges that they have opinions, and that sometimes they want to contribute to the show in some way. I just saw a funny clip of Sam Walker. Some guy yelled out, "My dad has cancer," and Sam Walker roasted him. That is the true definition of crowd work, when you absorb the crowd's energy, you listen to them, and then you give them humor back in some form, whether that's some kind of an insult or something like that. So I don't know if I'm going to do old stuff or crowd work or new stuff, but I got to decide by tomorrow. And I hate going up without a plan, because then you just look like one of these hacks. It's like, oh, what should I talk about? Oh, I could talk about anything. Oh, it's like, no, dude, that's not stand-up comedy. You need to have a plan. You need to write this stuff down ahead of time. Like, if you're not writing at all, if you're not creating ideas, then the process is just weak. Like, it's not a clever creation of a stand-up comedy act. It's just open mic, goofing around, unpolished, racist, sexist lingo. It's just weak comedy. So I got a real decision to make. I mean, one of the elephant in the room really right now is Donald Trump. Because even if you're the vice president, J.D. Vance, and you're making these like goofball comments about how the Ukrainian president should be more thankful, that's just goofy shit, right? He's 40 years old. He doesn't know what he's talking about. He used to hate Trump. That's the other weird thing about that guy. And he said, I would never vote for Trump. Trump's a bad guy. And now he's Trump's, like, ass kisser. But he's not even the main guy. The main guy is Trump. And he's going head to head with Ukraine. He's kissing Putin's ass, who's like a warlord, criminal, has fake elections, kills journalists. He's done crimes against humanity. So the fact that Donald Trump's like, yeah, it's fine. Putin, we just want peace. Donald Trump keeps going, I just want peace, man. I'm tired of all the kids dying. And then he goes and kisses Putin's ass as if Putin didn't start the war. It's just such bullshit. Like Donald Trump, he's a liar, basically, is what's going on. So he's saying I want peace, and then he's doing all this other stuff that's not peaceful. He's threatening to take over countries like Greenland and Gaza and Panama Canal and Canada, where I live. And people here are like, oh, that will never happen. You know, we'll never join America. And then so the idea there is like, okay, if we're never going to join Canada, but he's talking about taking over one way or the other, which is something he said. And so right now he's trying economically with these tariffs. But one way or the other means if it doesn't work, then the next step is, okay, military, you know? And so then the question you got to ask yourself is like, okay, if he sends in young American boys into Canada, are they going to go? Are they going to come up here and fight against their neighbor? Because a lot of them probably wouldn't want to. They didn't want to go to Iraq. And the other question you got to ask yourself is, what's NATO going to do? What is England going to do? Are they just going to go, oh yeah, Canada, sure, have them? Probably not. So we're sitting here asking ourselves all these questions, and Donald Trump's going like, yeah, one way or the other. And this is the guy that is claiming he's peaceful. That's not what a peaceful person does. So I think he's basically lying about being a peaceful person. I think he does like the idea of war. I think he knows that going into Gaza would mean more war, because he's going to be supporting Israel in their efforts to secure the area. Whether or not you believe that there's this huge terrorist threat that Israel is having to defend themselves against, the bottom line is, in order to get rid of Gaza, you have to displace all the Palestinians, and that's a war, or some people call that a genocide when you move people, but it's at least a war. So Donald Trump is talking about going there into war, and he's supposedly the peaceful guy. So Americans that voted for him are thinking, okay, I voted for a guy that said he was going to bring peace. Then he is siding with Putin, who's the least peaceful of the two countries in that war, because he's the aggressor. And then all these other countries he's talking about taking over. Those would be wars. And yeah, it's not peaceful. The only so the issue that the other campaign issue I remember from the fall when Americans voted Donald Trump in was immigration. That was a big one. And immigration is one of these things where the way they justify it is, okay, there's people coming from other countries who are criminals, and they're not allowed to be in the United States, so they want to get them out, which is understandable. I could see voting for someone that wants to get the criminals out of your country. And then what ends up happening is he goes around and he's deporting people, and nobody is really sure if any of these people are criminals. It seems more like they just wanted to deport people that were in the country illegally, which at the end of the day, if you're not supposed to be in a country, you probably shouldn't be. But there are things like asylum. If you're coming from another country where it's bad. Like if you're coming from a war-torn country or a dictatorship and you're trying to escape danger, that's historically a reason why other countries like the United States have let immigration happen. So you got to ask yourself, if you're a Republican voter in the US, like where's the limit of this, of the peace? Like you're trying to keep the peace, you're trying to keep the criminals out of your country. I get that. But to go around starting other conflicts is obviously not peace. And I just listened to one of my favorite American politicians, who's I think retired now, but he still does a podcast, and his name's Ron Paul. And Ron Paul is saying they shouldn't be in Ukraine, which is fine because he doesn't want to have Americans meddling in other countries. But the other thing Ron Paul said on his show today is we shouldn't be meddling with free trade either. Free trade's a good thing. And so to have these tariffs, or like to go around messing with your allies, is not a good policy. So at least there's one voice of reason that I can tell in America right now. Ron Paul, he's saying the tariffs are a terrible idea. You shouldn't be instigating economic wars, trade wars with other countries. And so there's that. I guess I'm not sure if I fully agree that America has no role in stopping aggressors, like, for example, Vladimir Putin. Like, what kind of world are we living in if Vladimir Putin is allowed to invade any other country he wants? Because then the question is, like, is Ron Paul ignoring the idea that there are bad governments, or that there are dictators in the world that might want to take over another country? Like, doesn't I just, if I could talk to Ron Paul, I would want to know, like, well, what's America's role in defending other democracies? Because for a long time, that's what America and the other European countries were doing after World War II, was preventing dictators. And the counter argument to this is, well, look, it didn't work well in Vietnam. It didn't work well in, other countries where they tried, Iraq. And so we shouldn't be doing it. And that's a good policy. But I just wonder, like, with a country like 1940s Germany, obviously we did have to step in as the allies, and America did end up coming into that war. And so, anyway, these are all questions I have. And the real question is, like, can I do any of this in my stand-up comedy act tomorrow? Or is this all just, like, high-level economics that no one wants to hear about? It's not just economics. Like, it's also human nature. Like, I think most humans can agree that there are some bad people in the world, and if a bad person or a government decides to start a war, we kind of have a duty as a global community to stop that from happening. That's all I'm trying to say. Is that a joke? No. But there's humor in that we're all having to deal with this right now. And so we're all having to debate, even Canadians are debating what should be Canada's role in defending democracy in Ukraine. Some Canadians don't think we should be over there giving money or anything. So the idea that some people call our government socialist or communist, I don't think we're in an actual communist government. it does sometimes feel like there's corporate interests in our government. And so, in that sense, it's not a true democracy in that money and corporations are influencing the decisions of our politicians. And so, that's not ideal. That's not how a democracy is supposed to work. And we got this new guy, Pierre, who may become the next prime minister. And the question is he going to be better at not spending money on foreign wars, defending our borders, creating a military here so that we're not under threat from other countries invading us? Like, if we vote Pierre in, will he actually help against these corporate interests that are running our government right now? And I don't know about that. I haven't made up my mind. I'm going to have to vote sometime in the spring or summer, but I still haven't decided who to vote for. So that's where I'm at, and it's fine. Everything's fine. Mentally, I'm okay. I'm just, like I said, I'm a little addicted to the news, but I guess that's just the world that I'm living in. Some people can tune the news out. I don't know how they do it. Like, sometimes I go to work and my boss is like, "Oh, you seem stressed. Are you worried about the news or something?" And I'm like, "Yeah, like, the news is always on. News doesn't stop." And I just don't understand, like, how anyone cannot be affected by the news or be watching the news. I don't know, man. Just wild. I just don't know if I have the brain capacity to take it in all the time. It's always scary. It's always negative. I gotta be sitting at home, reading a positive book sometimes, like a nice, enjoyable, happy story, or going golfing. I just got these golf clubs. I got my skateboard right here. Still a bit of snow on the ground, but I could go skateboarding. I could go golfing. I don't know, man. Life's a gamble. You got to participate in democracy, otherwise it doesn't work at all. So you got to vote for the lesser of two evils on the ballot, and you just got to suck it up and do the right thing. Because if you don't do the right thing, you start to slip into living a lazy, immoral, corrupt, greedy type of life. And I don't think anyone wants that. I don't want to live that life. So I would rather be addicted to the news than just sit around smoking cigarettes and drinking beers and not giving a fuck about anything. Like, that doesn't sound healthy. That doesn't sound engaged. So I don't know. I just don't know, man. I don't know what I'm gonna do. I don't know what Canada's gonna do. I don't know what Alberta's gonna do. There's a lot of people here that want to leave Canada in this province. They just want to separate. They want to be their own country, which is wild. We do have all the resources. I mean, we got money. The only thing we don't have is our own military. And yeah, like, to separate from a country is so insane. Quebec tried to do it. They had a referendum, and Quebec that's the French speaking area of our country. And they were just going to leave. They were just going to be their own country. We speak a different language. We don't need you. We're more French than English. We love France. And France is like a revolutionary type country. I actually read that nationalism started in France. So France was one of the first countries to start calling itself a country, like we are France. And they tried to get people all to speak French because there was different dialects early on in French history. That's very interesting. Like the French came up with this idea, we're a country. And then other countries were like, we're a country too. And now we're living in 2025, and everyone's like, I'm a country, and you can't come near my country or I'll shoot you. Like, invading other countries isn't done anymore. Like, China wants to take over Taiwan and Hong Kong. I think they already have Hong Kong. So these things are happening. North Korea still wants to take over South Korea, I think. So all these things are going on, and most rational people are like, no more wars. There's no more invading. All the countries have been divided up. It's over. We did that. We had World War II, remember? They dropped the nukes on Japan. That was the end of it. Nobody wants any more nukes dropping from the sky. And so it's just kind of wild that we're even having these conversations of, well, Russia really wants Ukraine, so maybe we should let them have it. And Donald Trump would really feel better if Canada wasn't socialist and joined up with him. Like, that's a conversation. It's 2025. That's not how this works anymore. That's why we have NATO. NATO is all the European countries with armies that are going around saying, hey, if you're in the Middle East and you're messing around with dictatorship, don't do that. You better have a democracy. You better let those people vote. That's what NATO's been doing. So NATO has been around for a long time, like since the Second World War almost, I think. And the whole point is that these European countries that have armies, France, Germany, England, all of them, Italy, they're all just sitting there with tanks and guns and air forces, navies, and the whole point is, yeah, if anyone around here messes with one of these little countries trying to take them over, no. You back off. We have all the army stuff. But that doesn't seem to be working against Russia, because Russia's just like, well, what are you going to do? Are you going to fight us if we try and get some of this land that we think is ours? And nobody's fighting them. We send this is the weird part. We send our equipment in. We give them some jets, but we won't fly them. Like, NATO won't fly them. NATO just provides the jet and the tank and the drone. But we don't fly the drone, we don't drive the tank, we don't shoot the gun, and we don't fly the plane. This is the system that we're working with. What the fuck? All right, folks. That's all I have to say for today. It's too bad we couldn't do the podcast with Ed today. I know we were going to talk about telepathy. And Ed and I both agree that telepathy is a form of mental illness. So, get ready for that talk in the future. It's going to be good. All you autists autism parents that think your telepathy with your autistic kid is real, it's not real. Peace.